Gents, despite all sorts of forces conspiring against us, we made it happen. Welcome to CamBro Conversations.
I'm excited for this, man. That's gonna be sick.
My first appearance. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, that's it. The debut. We've got a few things we want to box off in D by D's life before he jumps on as an interview. But let's not do any spoilers on that before we get there. But today we're looking ahead to 2023 in terms of the things that we are feeling bullish about and the things that we're feeling bearish about, and there's going to be such a wide remit that we can do that. But let's just work our way around the table, share a couple of different ideas, we'll debate each one back and forth and see how we get on with it. I'm sure there'll be some agreement, but hopefully there'll be some diversity of thought as well, rather than just diversity of opinion. But let's start with yourself, Darren. What are you feeling bullish about for 2023?
All right, so I want to do something that was a bit different and go through a few different ideas, but let's just go into one, for instance, for now. So one I wanted to start with was self-sovereignty. So there's a big issue around that, or a big kind of question mark around that, and there's a few different areas I want to discuss, because sovereignty is obviously like the act to be able to do whatever you want, go out and do whatever you want in the world. By working in companies or by working in certain states, whatever, that's obviously becomes under scrutiny, so you can't do it. What I wanted to kind of focus on, I suppose, for next year is not necessarily like throwing away the 9 to 5 we discussed on your podcast, whatever. It's just the ability to be able to take ownership of what you actually want to do and be able to actually just focus in on that. So it kind of flips the script back into working a job, just doing that 100%, and then just seeing how your life goes. So I think that's a big kind of focus that I think is very important, because what I do find is when people don't take some sort of ownership or have some bit of sovereignty, what it is, they just complain a lot about what their environment, not making enough money, don't have close enough friends, don't have a good enough network. So I think being able to take that, run with it, is super important. I don't think a lot of people do it at all. And what I've seen more and more, so obviously I've been, living abroad for a long time, but what I'm often seeing is that Western societies are becoming more and more victimized from it. So they're saying, oh, it's not my fault that, putting their hand out, they need help, this, and this. So I think that's a big part. Obviously we can go into super detail, but I think people do need to be taking a lot more ownership in what they're doing.
So you are you feeling confident that's going to happen, or are you just confident in the people that are going to do that themselves?
Like with a lot of things we're going to discuss, I think a big thing is that there's always going to be some people that will do that and some people that won't. We discussed on your podcast as well how you were asking, should some people throw away their 9 to 5? And I think there's some people who need it because they're unorganized, they're not disciplined, they don't have the commitment. Dan Coe always says that if you don't have a plan, you will be given a plan. If you don't have a goal, you'll be assigned a goal. If you don't have a metric, you will be given a metric to abide by. So some people will have it, some people won't have it. So I think if you're thinking in terms of, oh, my life is going this particular way, how do I bring it back? That has to be one of the main focuses, I think. What's your thoughts on it?
I completely agree, and I think personal responsibility remains unfashionable. You guys know every year I do like a list of things, so like 28 things at 28, 29 things at 29, and then this year I did 30 things at 30, and I did that as a podcast episode, and one of them, and it remains in every single year, has been personal responsibility remains unfashionable, and that is absolutely the case. And I agree with you that there are certain people that are predisposed to be better within a 9 to 5 and those that are better to be outside of it. I equally believe that most people should make sure that within your 9 to 5 you have options as well, because again, to refer back to some of the stuff I've created over the years, and I've got such a backlog. Episode 15 is one of the most listened to episodes because I spoke about moving company being made redundant because the business got bought by an American hedge fund 6 weeks into me working there. Everyone got made redundant, the entire UK operation. So even if you are all eggs into your one basket when it comes to your 9 to 5, have options within that as well, and take complete personal responsibility for giving yourself those options in terms of being highly desired. David and I have spoken about this before offline, that being aware of what your market value is within the workplace is vitally important as well, whether that's other firms, whether that's other options, whether that's even just building a side hustle on the side that meant that you could financially support yourself until you maybe wanted to re-enter the workplace as well. And I know, David, we've spoken about before in terms of knowing your market value and being somebody that your firm recognizes your value internally because externally you have interest in you too.
There will be some people that will be accustomed to a tradition or their social circles and maybe have a desire to want to be self-sovereign, but because of their clique, don't feel empowered or encouraged to do that. What do you think is like the first step to moving forward to being more sovereign? For me, it's just to pick a thing. Just pick 100%. One thing and like double down on it, create some identity capital around it, create the network that supports.
What was that for you, David?
For me, Definitely social mobility. It's a cause and passion that I've been a benefactor of since the age of 16. And within the workplace, I realized that there was a lack of visibility of people like me in a place like that. So I started telling my story, started sharing that, and I slowly built a cluster of people who thought and believed like me. And that became the echo chamber to empower me to go on and capitalize on that one thing within the workplace and build personal identity, build culture capital around that.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting there as well is the fact that when I describe this, it always goes back to, okay, making money for yourself or building your own business. But that's actually not what it's about. It's about what you're describing is that it could be anything, but it's just taking ownership of it. So we always default back to, having your own job or whatever it is. So me who still has my 9 to 5, I'm not negating that at all, but it's the first step. And when you do it once, you realize then that when you have your life in control, you can then dictate a lot of your future. And I'll give you a great example. We always play victim mindset. When I arrived in Dublin, flying back from Singapore, 7 o'clock in the morning, Christmas week, fuck all flights. Most people, including my parents, were like, just wait it out, get the bus in a couple of hours. The bus will come at 8, 9, 10, 11. I looked at my girlfriend, I was like, fuck this, renting a car. And she was like, why? It's expensive. I was like, who cares? Let's just go rent a car. Because when you're used to just solving problems, you look at something like that, you're like, bullshit, let's go fix it. Similarly then in the career sense, it's a big thing where people say, wait until they get promoted. But if you're taking the front foot at it, speaking with your boss, how do I get promoted? What do I need to do? You are actively working towards it. So then when crunch time comes, when the bus doesn't show up, you're used to being like, let's make a move. It can be anything. Same with fitness as well. High blood pressure, anything, you can tie it back around and just make any bit of action. But people want to go back to the default of, it's not my fault, blame other people.
I was interested that David said that his thing was definitely, for starters, social mobility, because I can certainly see that as a thread. But I know that on all of our lists when it comes to Bullish, it's probably going to be something fitness related, as you said. And it's definitely taught me personal responsibility. It's been my gateway drug to relative success that I've enjoyed, because it's built an element of being completely responsible for what I put in my mouth, how many times I'll pick things up and put them down, how many steps that I do, how many hours sleep that I get. And when it came to that redundancy period, I took complete accountability for, I moved to this company, I now need to find something that's of a similar level or a level up, and I managed to successfully move up as well. And the lessons that fitness taught me in terms of being able to embrace your own level of suffering on a daily or a weekly basis is very, very important. And I've joked on this podcast before in this particular seat about people talking about, getting into the trenches and going to war with the gym. That's hyperbole and it's silly. Yeah. But there is elements of truth when, I've sent you guys silly videos and voice notes before when I've been out a walk in horrific conditions, shouting David Goggins quotes who's going to carry the boats and stuff like that as well. But I genuinely
I believe that shit, man.
I actually get off to doing things that other people maybe won't do. And if 100%. You can create elements of that within your character, within the workplace as well, then that's very important too. So that could be from a business development perspective. I'll make the phone call that everyone's terrified to phone that company because they always say no to us. But then if I close a deal with them for X number of £1,000 or X number of £1 million potentially, if they're that big, it feels pretty good because you've done the scary thing. And it's the same as lots of things that you guys have exposed yourself to in the past 12 months. Like David, some of the events that you've spoken at, some of the Zoom calls that you've ended up on,
the comedy fucking show,
are
man,
incredible. Yeah, and that's by taking personal responsibility and embracing elements of fear and struggle.
It's also recognizing that no one's coming to save you. I think
100%.
The reason many people probably don't change or take personal responsibility is because their current existence isn't uncomfortable enough. They're still going to get paid at the end of the month. They're still going to have a bed to sleep in, and they're still going to eat. And that reality isn't painful enough for them to make a change. For me, recently, there's been some aspects of my life that have needed direct action that I'm implementing in January because they have been painful enough for me to make that change. And I think, I don't know how you induce that level of pain in someone to make them make that change, how you instill that in them for them to make a change, because people are just so comfortable in their kind of constant reality that there's no trigger for them to make a change. If someone is living in a world of consistency, complacency, and comfort, how would you encourage them to make a change to become more?
I've not thought tremendously about this, but the expectation effect is massive. So if your expectations are raised for different areas of your life in terms of I have higher expectations for this than are currently going on. So I have higher expectations for my living standards than I'm currently achieving with the house or the property that I'm living in. I have higher expectations for my physique than I'm currently achieving. I have higher expectations for my salary or my fulfillment from my career that I'm currently achieving. Then that will generate pain if there's a delta between your expectations and the reality.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, raising the bar in terms of your expectations might be because of the people that you hang around with. So I've never been massively car driven. I've always had a relatively nice car, but with my increase in finances in recent months and years, I've kept the same car because I've not been it's not been a pain point. However, I've been spending time with people who have supercars and really nice cars as well. And it's actually pushing buttons in my head to think, Colin, your expectations for the car you drive should be a little bit higher. Now, I recognize that it's not a massive value of mine, so I've not been in a rush, but my expectation of the car that I drive has now moved, and there's now a delta between my reality and the car that I drive. Mm-hmm. Therefore, there's an element of pain, David, that might drive change. So for me, again, not thought of this clearly, but it's coming to me on a relative level in terms of framework. Improve your expectations and and what you expect of yourself in particular areas of your life. And if there's a delta, then the pain should be such that it might drive you to take action and make a change to that.
Absolutely, man. And I guess I want to add to that as well. So I think when I went, I've been traveling, when I come back, I really realize why people don't change. I think I've not cracked it, but I think I do understand it. So living fucking 8,000, 10,000 miles away, right? If I don't get up and work my fucking ass off, stick my face onto my laptop every single day, I can't pay my rent. Simple as, right? My parents are ordinary people. They don't give me any money. If I don't do it, I just can't pay my rent. I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere that if I don't do it, nothing will ever happen. When there's that level of stress, it is a tactical stress, which means that in that environment, I will work so hard that I'll get up, whether I'm happy, sad, hungry, whatever, I'll just work and get that done. Okay. So I'm always moving towards that goal. And then that's my baseline. It's the heaven and hell analogy. The hell is that I just miss all these payments and I'm screwed. The heaven is that I can aspire to a lot more. Now, when I come back into, let's say, my hometown, which is really small town mentality, everyone talking with each other, like bitchy mentality. For them, and for a lot of people who just live like very, very close to home, whatever, there's no real risk in what they're doing. Just like when they went to university and weren't really motivated, or went to school and they weren't really motivated, it's because at the end of the day, daddy, mommy will put their hand out and help them. They'll bring them back home and that'll be the end of it. Similar in a career sense. They look at, let's say when you got made redundant and you're saying, oh, I'm screwed, I need to move somewhere else. A lot of people think that, well, at the end of the day, I have all the support because I'm in that network. So where I go with this is environment design. Put yourself in those positions. Move to a bigger city, move to a better position, or move to a bigger company that's under a lot of stress. I saw Morgan Stanley around the corner when I drove in, and I just thought to myself, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, if you're working for a company like that, you're going to be driven in such a way, you're going to be pushed in such a way, and therefore you're going to be made to change. Because when I look back at some people that I grew up with, or even the city I grew up with, those people never change because they never had to change. It didn't matter did they change or not. They could go to the pub, watch Liverpool at the weekend. They could go to some training. It doesn't even matter. Whereas for me, I have to forego a lot of that stuff because I need to be able to move forward. And I also want to. It's not even a need, it's just a want to. But it's a nice marriage between the two because it works in harmony.
Yeah, before we move on to David's first bullish point, to wrap that up, one of the things that I spoke about with Elliot Wise in the podcast, who is a mentor and a multiple business owner, like hugely successful guy, is that many people have major discomfort to a level in terms of they're not happy with their career, they're not happy with their family life, they're not happy with how they look, they're not happy with how they spend their time, but they sedate themselves constantly throughout the day. And you were naming some of the things there. They watch the football on the weekend, they watch hours of Netflix a night, they get out their head on drinking drugs on the weekend to escape from the reality. Now, by kind of sedating themselves with these micro comforts, they give themselves the opportunity to never make the big change. So he talked about ripping a big plaster off rather than just like dealing with these micro cuts on a daily basis. So I completely agree with that. You're talking about changing your environment. You're talking about creating a difference between what your expectations are and your reality is, and having enough pain there to be like, this needs to change right now, and allowing that to happen.
And I think, and I know you want to move on to my first bullish item, but one thing that I've made a proactive decision in 2022 to undertake, and which will definitely be a trend in 2023, is finding physically scary things or fearful things to do, because it has increased my tolerance for other scary things that don't align to that level of magnitude. I did a skydive this year. I did a stand-up comedy course, and I'm doing a bungee jump in January. And these three adrenaline provoking things have actually lowered my baseline to stress. Like work meetings, like presentations at work, scary podcasts, I don't feel the intensity that I used to because I've done these overly enthralling things. And I think maybe like a entry, like a low barrier to entry is just doing one big task that might scare you, whether it's your first public speaking engagement, whether it's your first presentation at work, whether it's something like a comedy course or a skydive or an improv workshop. For me, that has massively improved my tolerance to fear this year.
I'm on board. It's like exposure therapy, isn't it? But like you're training so that, like, this is, again, we'll go really corny, but like you're sweating in battle so that you don't bleed in war, or whatever way you want to do it. But yeah, let's wrap that one up and move on to David's first bullish point. I know you've got some good ones for us, David. So what are you opening with?
I'm bullish on male hair restoration.
Yes.
And I'm really lucky that the camera's on my good side. So I've been looking into male hair restoration because my TikTok or Instagram reels have been promoting a lot of hair transplantation and male hair care products like minoxidil and finasteride. And for a while I was thinking, they've sussed me out, the algorithm sussed me out, it knows I'm losing hair. Hopefully it's not just me. So I looked online and looked at some statistics, and apparently 57% of men are experiencing varying levels of hair loss, and the hair transplant market has tripled in size over the last 10, 15 years. And much like you would look after your skin with moisturizer, much like you would look after your internals with vitamins, and you look after your body with exercise, there's less focus on male hair restoration. It's taboo. I don't know if it's because we're from this kind of, I don't know, alpha male kind of environment where this kind of stuff isn't spoken about. I know you guys speak about it so clearly, and that's what kind of introduced me to looking after my hair. But I think there'll be an upwards trend in men looking after their hairline via orals, via topicals, or via complete transplantation in 2023.
Bullish on hair restoration. Now, we were literally sitting with one of the experts on this because you've got a viral video on YouTube. Is that one of your highest viewed videos?
It actually is. Like, it's 250,000 views, but it has, like, in terms of like reach, it's reached like 10, 15 million people at this stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just on that point, like, I think 100% the tides are turning in terms of that, because we used to all look at, you know, boob jobs and lip fillers, whatever, and that was all like taboo back in the day, and that's all moved into like complete, just normalized. And if you say something enough, it just moves into society, and it's just the new norm. I guarantee you, when I put out that video a year ago, people were like, "Oh, dumbass!" Like, look at him sharing around, be like, "Oh, what an idiot," whatever. But I've kept on it. I've kept growing my hair, and now 2 years later, I'm going to do the exact same one. I'm going to do something similar pretty soon. But it's kind of like people. It's like the difference between the goal you want to achieve and where you are right now. We think it's such a big wide gap, but it's actually not. It's just a few small little steps along the way, and it's the same with anything, really, pretty much. When it comes to your hair, though, there's just such small things you can do that can make a massive difference, should I say. And I think that's going to be the way forward. People are like, more plates, more dates obviously started that whole trend 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I was the exact same as you, man. I was thinking I'm going to have to shave my entire head or go to Turkey and get screwed over. Then the more I looked into hair transplant, I realized that, okay, transplants are only like one step away. You do need to go on finasteride afterwards. If anyone tells you they're not, you know, they're pretty much cutting you deliberately till you get a transplant. So what will happen is you lose your hair, and then you need to protect what you've already had. So you do need to go back on finasteride, generally recommended by people. So in terms of that doesn't mean you fix your solution, because if you get a transplant, you're back to square one where you were. So again, active measures on that, which was, for me, I've been on finasteride for 2 years. Obviously, this isn't medical advice, but finasteride for 2 years, biothin. I haven't went on minoxidil. I don't think I need to. I've been derma rolling for quite some time. I've been using 2% ketoconazole shampoo. And to be honest, it's just been introducing small bits along the way, and it's made a huge impact so far.
The examples David gave are perfect. The vitamins you take to look after the inside of your body. What was your other moisturizer to look after your skin?
Yeah.
Make it part of your routine and do the same things as well. Like Darren, I've been using finasteride. I used it since I was 21. I'm now 30, so I've used it for a very, very long time. And it was just like in the same way that I was taking orals for like vitamin C, vitamin D, omega-3. I just decided that was part of my routine as well. Now it's a much more serious compound to consider, and there are sides, and people need to look into that. Rick Darren's video is perfect for that. But I'm extremely bullish on it as well because I think it's in the mainstream conversation now. It's not just forums, because when I first started, the forums I was reading were absolutely horrifying. Like it was
That's
guys,
internet,
it was
though, you know
guys
what I
being
mean?
like, I've not had an erection since I started
Yeah.
using it and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow. I mean, is it worth not going bald and or not having your little man work downstairs? That's a problem.
There's
Isn't
still forums on creatine about that as well to this day, you know? And that's when I went further deep down the rabbit hole in terms of like, okay, how much do I really need? Have you ever heard a backstory to it? So for anyone, like finasteride was mainly used for prostate cancer. So they started using it in the 70s and 80s, and it does work for prostate cancer, reduces the size of your prostate. So that's 5 milligrams. Okay, 5 milligrams is a lot. By doing that, they realized two things. One, males weren't getting erection anymore. So they were getting extreme side effects, stress, overwhelm. Main thing wasn't getting erection or pissing more. So that was the first thing. And they pushed it way down. And then they realized that in these cancer patients, they were regrowing their hair. So then they knew the finasteride was working. So as a result, when you reduce the dosage down to like 1 milligram or even 0.6 milligram, you were still able to get the hair growth with none of the side effects. Not none, but a reduced rate for sure. So that's how it kind of kicked off. And, you know, that's where all the forums grow up. But same with the internet, like the majority voice is always the minority of people. So you need to be able to see between the cracks. But I think with finasteride, everyone, whoever goes on it, you get it done by a doctor professionally, and then you definitely monitor it. Because in the beginning, I'd read all that shit. I was a bit worried, whatever. And in the beginning, I'll always admit this, that I just remember just peeing a lot. I was peeing like once an hour. It's kind of strange. It was like in meetings, I was peeing once an hour. After a month, just completely finished. And I've been on it for a month, for 2 years. My best mate's been on it for 2 years as well as a result. And yeah, I think your body gets adapted to it as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. But yeah, I'm extremely bullish on it as well. I think we should be having these conversations more. And that part of our episode, Darren, was the part that I got the most like comments and questions back from in the DMs, because people were like, I'm glad two guys that like are talking about this. Equally, I think I'm actually seeing online, which is quite positive, like more young guys shave their head and owning it, which I think is very, very important too. Either own it or take proactive measures towards it. Don't just sit in limbo and be unsure of what's going to happen.
That's one thing that I'm cautious of, whether we hyperfixate on what the perfect hairline looks like. Just like how we have adapted to the perfect pair of boobs or lips or whatever else, are we putting pressure on young men to have a straight cut hairline by going for transplants and using these treatments? Or should we be more acceptant to men lose hair because of a varying amount of factors, and we should just normalize that? I'm scared in case we're putting unrealistic expectations on young men. And I've seen on reels and TikTok young men at the age of like 20, 21 going for transplants when their hairline was a quarter as bad as mine. And I'm scared in case we're forcing these expectations on young men.
People will always be influenced. It's their responsibility to consume the content and act accordingly. Like if you saturate yourself with these clips, of course your head's going to go that way. It's the same way, like, oh, if I post my six pack, am I creating an like unfair expectation of what the male body should look like? Instagram probably does that. Like I was definitely fried. Like I watched so much like fitness YouTube back in the day. That, like not even Mike. Mike wasn't big at that point, but like Joey D, who you and I have had the pleasure to speak to as well. Like his physique was absolute goals, and we knew he was natural as well. So you're kind of like, well, I could definitely work towards that as well. So yeah, like I think whatever content you consume, you can be led down the rabbit hole, but like equally, if the algorithm's constantly serving you that as well, you can just change in what you're engaging with, and it will start to change that as well, or unsubscribe from those pages that are feeding you that as well. If you feel it's damaging, it might not be. It might just be general good health advice. Expectation
management as well. You know what you want to get out of it. Like I remember just growing up and just thinking that my hair. I remember looking at my brother, who was 6 years older than me, who was literally balding at 21 years old, looking at my grandparents and thinking like, oh, this is the way I'm going. And I remember like, we're all pretty like conscious of how we look, whatever, and we want to stay in good shape. But as I was getting older, I remember no matter how much I went to the gym, no matter how on track I was with my diet, no matter how much I studied, or no matter how much I wanted to like get better at something, your hair was the one thing you couldn't control. I could not control that. And that to me was like, something that I just couldn't fathom. It was like input does not equal output, or input does not equal outcome as a result. So it was very, very difficult to make any adaptation. As a result of that, when more plates, more dates started making the videos, I was like, I finally have an answer. You know, there's actually a way to be able to kind of do this. And of course, you know, everyone has to be careful doing it. But now there is an answer for men, which is sick.
Yeah, I like that, and there's huge elements of like positive things when you can control the outcome to some extent with the input that you do, and like I've got this on my list. It wasn't necessarily going to be the first one I brought up, but it links to control, and that is I'm very bullish about elective sobriety. Many people that listen to my podcast or have heard me guest on both of your podcasts will know that I've probably for the last 8 years been extremely selective of when I've drank. I actually did a period where I didn't drink for over 900 days. And I've now reintroduced alcohol slightly more regularly. I drank twice in like 1,000 days, and I probably drank 3 times when I was in Dubai in 14 days, which a lot of people were surprised at seeing. But elective sobriety in terms of understanding the benefits of sustained periods of sobriety where you completely opt out of having the substance whatsoever, and the benefits and the upside of that, I'm extremely bullish that more people will start to explore that. Many people that are listening to this at the time of release in January might be doing dry January. They might have done sober October before as well. I would encourage people to do slightly longer stints to really see the upside. I would say 90 days is when it starts to really compound and you see huge upsides from that. But I think a lot of people are wakening up to that. I've been out for a lot of different Christmas nights out in the last month or so, and a number of people that haven't been drinking on those nights out that previously I would expect to be drinking, and they're just like, yeah, I'm just not choosing to drink tonight. I've got this coming up next week. Whereas I think, and again, I've met some guys at the gym in the last couple of days who've been like, I've been caning it for like 6 days straight and I feel terrible and I cannot wait to have a break. And I was saying, like, how many of those nights were good? And they were like probably 4 of them. So I'm saying, well, there's 2 there that were kind of like low return on your investment, and they were like, I could easily have gone to that dinner and not had a bottle and a half of wine. And I'm thinking, that's interesting that people are waking up to that. And I know that I wouldn't have done some of the different things that I've done in the last 2 years if I didn't have that really long stint of pretty much complete sobriety. Equally, I do recognize the benefits that I had from embracing that element of substance in Dubai and really just enjoying myself. But Darren, you've kind of gone that way a little bit as well.
6 months now. So I was going to make a video on before I left Singapore, but I said I'm going to wait until January. But it's been 6 months, and the main contributing factor was you originally, because
see, I do provide some good influence sometimes, guys. Not just encouraging people to get really ripped.
When because what I always do is like I look at generally like who are my biggest influences. Okay, so I look at, and I have a lot of mentors who are quite old, like Simon Ree was on your podcast, whatever. A few of these guys who are just killing it, like the majority of them are millionaires, majority of them are pretty happy, they're pretty healthy, and they're pretty fit. And I always think about, where am I right now, and where are they, and what were they not doing that I'm doing? And a lot of that involves drinking, staying up at 6 o'clock in the morning, staying up for 3 nights in a row before when I was single, being out on dates. Like, dates are expensive and they're time consuming, like fucking 5 days a week, whatever, right? So I was trying to look at all those different areas. And then I met Colin, and he was on my show. And then you were someone who was roughly my age, who was doing exceptionally well, but you weren't doing the thing that I was doing, which was drinking excessively. Not even necessarily excessively, but if I was out a night out, I'd go a night out. An Irish guy, like a fucking Scottish guy, can drink a lot. You know, I can drink half a litre of gin on a night out, you know? And that's just normal in Ireland, right? So I was like, let's remove that. Went to Singapore. Of course, the guys there are just like killers. People are there just to work, make a lot of cash, whatever. And I looked around and I was like, what are these guys doing that I'm not doing? Drinking. They're not out partying, whatever. So I was able to focus at the weekend by just eliminating that out. FOMO completely gone. Never think about it. Focus, sleep. Sleep have got a lot better. My diet's got a lot better. Concentration. And then the longer I go, I would say that I've reached, as you said, the 90-day limit whereby you feel great. But now it's kind of more like I owe it to myself, and the more respect I have for myself is that, why would I possibly do that? And then when I go back to Ireland, everyone's like, oh, you want a drink? You want this? You want that? And I'm like, I don't need it. I went for like a beautiful dinner with all my friends. There was like 15 of us, all our everyone with their girlfriends, and I didn't need a drink, and it was amazing as a result. So I think I would encourage people to just try it for even 30 days. I think 30 days you might feel a difference, 60 days, 90 days. And trust me, the amount of work I've done in the last 6 months, the brands that I've even built around, the podcasts, the people I've podcasted with, has only come from having narrow focus without drinking.
You've had even more time as well, that's a mad gain, isn't it?
It's huge.
Like, when I didn't have a hangover in 900 days, I was like, wow, I actually get so much done.
And don't you create an excuse as well for yourself? You're like, oh, you know, I can be hungover today and I deserve it. You justify being out. And I remember just thinking, like, even Christmas period is a perfect one. It's like, oh, we should be hungover on the 22nd and 23rd. It's like, really? Do I really need to be hungover, you know?
The only thing before I bring you in, David, is just that now when I have reintroduced it, is making sure that I've done the work that allows me to have a day where I function at a lower level. Because there were some days in Dubai where I had little bits and pieces to do for the podcast on like a Sunday after we've been at brunch on a Saturday or a night out after it. And just knowing that I ticked all the boxes, all I'm going to have to do today is share a couple of things to the story, send my WeTransfer link to my video editor and crack on from there, which is great. But you have to earn the right to do that. And that's how my mind works at this point, because I've had such a long period where I have functioned at a high level, knowing that the day when I'm a little bit down regulated, I've got less to do because I've done the work in advance, and almost like discipline equals freedom off the back of that.
100%.
My plan for 2023 is to go 6 months sober, which will be the longest stint that I've been sober. In 2022, I did around 90 days sober, which for me was a long period of time, the longest I'd ever been sober. I was doing a photo shoot prep. I couldn't afford to go out drinking, couldn't afford to lose a gym session or mess up on my meals. And what the realization that came to me was, prior to that, my worst days of 2022 were induced with a hangover. And a question I want to pose to you guys now that you've exceeded that 6 months threshold or that 90 days threshold is there a paradox of curiosity? Do you ever become curious to what being drunk is? Again, like you did 900 days and then you went to Dubai. Were you curious to know what the feeling of being drunk was, or were you totally removed from that curiosity?
I'm extremely extroverted anyway. So I was doing lots of different events and venues. I went to raves sober. I went to parties sober. I went to meet and greets sober. And I noticed that pretty much the only difference when I'm drunk is I'm a bit louder and a little bit sillier. Not much. And I can stay out longer because there's more excitement. You lose track of time more easily. Whereas when you're sober, you definitely hit like midnight, 1 a.m. and you're like, right, okay, I need to call this. Whereas when you're drunk, you've got the excitement that carries you through. Alcohol fatigues you in some ways, but it also gives you like a buzz because there's calories in it as well. It's kind of like, it's empty calories, but it's giving you a buzz that you're kind of kicking on. I definitely didn't have curiosity because let's say when I left university at 21, I'd had so many drunken experiences that I kind of was like, okay, that's cool. So that was 2014. So across those 8 years, I was probably drinking 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year. My birthday, my brother's birthday, on holiday in Ibiza, on holiday in Dubai, a particular event that I wanted to go to at home, or like a friend's birthday that I knew there was going to be like 20 of us out and we were going to go to this club and this club and this club. And I chose those specifically. So even at that stage, I'd learned that I'm going to use alcohol very specifically. Otherwise, I'm going to drive because I love the feeling of being like, right, I've had my fun. I'm in the car. I'm way home. The next day, waking up fresh, going to the golf course, going to the gym, doing whatever it was I was going to do, because with that comes real power for me. So my curiosity for like knowing what drunkenness was going to feel like, I'd done most of it before. I'm not saying I've done all of it. There's still things I want to experience, of course there is, and I'll probably experience that with the aid of alcohol, but I wasn't curious as to like knowing the experience, because at 30 years age now, I've had a lot of different nights out that I'm quite cool I've had.
And in both your sobriety journeys, you have not felt on a midweek, like on a Wednesday, oh, I'm choking for a pint on a Friday or Saturday. You've not felt that desire at all.
Completely unfair for me to compare that experience to anyone else, because I never enjoyed that even when I drank.
Same, man.
Never enjoyed that when I drank. I was drinking for 10, 12 vodkas, a night out, let's chase some girls around the nightclub, let's enjoy myself.
Yeah.
I was like, see when my friend, like say I was going to the football on a Saturday, 3 p.m. kickoff at Ibrox, I would go and I would drive. Some of the boys would have a couple of pints in the pub, but I never enjoyed that. I never got anything from a pint. I don't really like the taste of it.
Same. I was never like points culture as well, like a beer culture kind of guy. I was a person, I would go into Tesco, get like the cheapest fucking gin or vodka, and then get like low calorie like fucking mixer. So that was always kind of my kind of approach towards it. So it was never like you were going to be the person that was going to just be drinking on midweek, whatever. But what I think is a big contributor, which I've seen, is that I do find the UK and Ireland and probably the US as well, a lot of the culture is based around drinking because the weather's so shit, right? Like my parents now, for instance, or my family or my friends, whatever, we have nothing to do that we're back for a couple of weeks. We'll go for dinner, whatever. It's just natural to get a pint with it or a drink with it. Whereas like in, hot culture, hot climate, like I can go to the beach in the morning on a Saturday, Sunday, take it easy. I don't find myself in those same scenarios. We might go for food and people will be drinking there, but I don't feel like I need to be going to do it. And that's a big difference.
And to completely polarize that, I still live in the west coast of Scotland in a small town where there's literally not much else to do but go out on the lash. And when the weather's awful during September to December, my alcohol consumption increases drastically because all my mates do that. And I think alcoholism can be by design.
100%.
And I think an easy way to maybe kick off your sobriety journey, if you are in a similar situation to me in a small town, the culture around you supports alcoholism at the weekend, is do something on a Friday night that's social and does not involve alcohol. Like do like an evening spin class or a CrossFit class, something that has the social aspects of drinking but doesn't involve the substance itself. Whether it's a workshop or CrossFit or MetaFit or whatever else. I know we can slag functional fitness, but do something that is social on a Friday night that doesn't involve drinking.
No, I love it. I think the community aspect of these things is massive, and it gives you that social box that you've ticked, because socially, typically, you would have to go to the pub to get that, but you can get you've just created that off the back of something else.
I think Friday night's important. If you're one of these people that crave a night out on a Friday night midweek because by design your work week is stressful and you don't enjoy your day job, you have that craving to go out on a Friday night, just change the modality. I think it's a low hanging fruit, and for me, it's something I'm going to try and stick to for 2020.
Isn't that crazy though? Like the link between drinking alcohol, depression, everything that comes with it. If you think about it, because like it all comes back to something. There's a root of everything, and because drinking is such a big, topic to do in these cultures, it leads to all these negative outcomes. Like you look at someone like Rob Lipsett that was on your show. The dude like barely ever drinks. He's very good shape. He's in a good culture, good like environment. He doesn't need that, and therefore he's a very positive influence on people. He's a positive influence on people's life and career. I find that very admirable versus, I don't know, the traditional way of looking at things. And that's a big thing that I'm very against as well is, just doing things for the sake of doing it, the traditional behaviors, the non-individuality aspect of life. And that is definitely a culture that was born into us, passed down from generations and generations. I was joking the other day about how, to my girlfriend, how when my dad, like 20 years ago, he was able to drink and drive home. It was illegal. It was legal to drink and drive in Ireland up until like 20 years ago, which is wild, it's wild.
Environment design.
100%.
So of course you're allowed to do that because it's not illegal.
Yeah.
It's mad. It's almost encouraged. Yeah, it's wild. But I really hope that people in 2023 adopt elective sobriety for set periods. And when you do reintroduce alcohol and you say like, because during your 6 months, David, you basically need to tell people you don't drink. I would adopt the identity of, no, I don't drink.
And say you're focused. Just say you're focused. Sorry to interrupt you, but if you're on a date or something, someone's like, oh, why don't you drink? Mike Thurston said in his video, but I'm just focused on something. So a girl will either say to you, oh, that's really admirable. Or they'll be like, oh, whatever. And the girl that's kind of like giving out is not the girl
She's not for you, bro.
She's not for you. That's exactly it. Same with the guys, man. If a guy is shitting on you for not drinking, then he's not your friend. Simple as.
I did some sober dating in 2022, and for me it allowed me to expose a version of myself that I was comfortable sharing. By default, if you're drunk, you mitigate fear, so you overshare, overexpose on a first date. That could be overwhelming. You can be more strategic on how you date when you're sober. And I remember a specific example where I went out dating completely sober, but the person I went out on a date with was having a few drinks, and they tried. So the first introduction, they told me about their job, their career, their hobbies, their interests, very much aligned. They had a couple of drinks. Then they tried to twist my arm to drink. They knew I had the car. I said, no, I will not be drinking. I'm going to London tomorrow. After they continued to drink, they said, why don't you have a shot and drive home? That's fine. So the version of themselves completely changed from how they introduced themselves until they exposed their morals 90 minutes later.
Questionable, isn't it?
And for me, like going sober, in a dating context or a social context, allows you to see through the guise of some of the. Would you go out with other people that
the facade that people put up?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on board with that. No, that's really, really interesting. Let's go into something that you're bearish about for 2023, Darren. What are you down on?
Cool. So I have a lot of shit here, and I want to do one from that will be good for all of us. Let's say for now. So biggest thing I'm bearish on is pushback from corporates around work-life balance, around being in office, whatnot. So my stance on this is, if you are someone like us, you're disciplined, you are, strategic what you do with your career, it doesn't matter where you work, right? You can work fully remote, you can work in person. when your company and when your job is geared in such a way that it's around targets, goals, KPIs, or whatever it is attached, even if it's in consulting, you don't have exact goals, you can create goals. It doesn't matter where you are, because you're the type of individual who will go and get it no matter where you are. Now, some traditional firms are trying to get people to come back into the office, right? And by pushing people back into the office, they're doing two things. They're giving you an ultimatum whereby you can either fuck off or you come back to the office. And if you go looking for other roles, other companies at the moment are not letting you be fully hybrid. Nothing in contracts is saying 2 days from home or 3 days from home. They're doing it in such a way that they'll pull you back in a hybrid model or simply saying you have to work from the office. So I think some companies will have a rude awakening from that, because I do believe that it's mainly in the US, but the US culture is very much towards, ownership and, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to be my own fucking boss, essentially. And that culture is very important because you have people standing up to it who are then either finding the companies that are fully remote or working in a hybrid model, or better again, going off and being solopreneurs, building their own companies, building their own startups and agencies. It's that easy that I think the pushback from corporates will be very fierce. I feel like that people will not respond well to it. And I feel like that a lot of the old traditional firms will not get the same people that they used to get back in the day.
Because they're not catering for what an employee wants.
It's just a different era, you know what I mean? Just like, as I was saying, the older generation, even my brother, 6 years older than me, he's a managing director at 32 years old, highly accomplished guy, making a lot of money. The way he thinks about things is just very different than me, 26 years old. It's just completely misaligned. So these people are not speaking to the younger audience. They just tear everyone with the same brush. When I was 26, it was like this. It's completely different. And there's a guy on my podcast called Roy Samuel, who's a great dude. He's like, sold a couple of companies and along the way. He was giving a speech at a company the other day, and they're talking about neurodiversity. He has dyslexia, same as me, and ADHD. He was there speaking about how, you want your founder to be someone who actually has ADHD because he thinks very creatively or whatever. And he was kind of giving all these different in-depth analysis, which was really, really nice, okay? Their response to him was, should we allow employees have earphones in the office? And he's like, whoa. We're not talking about earphones in the office. We're talking about like actual serious shit. So they just don't get it. You know what I mean? Some of these older companies, they just don't understand it. They just don't get it. They don't understand that like in 2023, pretty much anyone can open up a website these days, make more money than they can make in their day job. So there needs to be that attraction. And I just think a lot of the traditional firms just don't offer it anymore.
My biggest pushback, and I actually have on my list, I'm quite bullish about office work. Not because, in contrast to some of what you said, but because of what I would call osmosis. And I know that particular personality types, including myself, learn very well from colleagues who've been there and done it. Now, I have, out of my 8-year corporate career since university, I've worked in an office for 18 months of that. And it actually wasn't at the start. The rest of it has been fully remote, but I learned very well from phone calls, Zoom calls, team calls. Mm-hmm. Even when I did go in person it was going down to like Cheltenham or Birmingham or Manchester or Burnley. So I was spending very minimal time with people, but I learned tremendous amounts when I was there. But I think a lot of people in the early years of their career benefit tremendously from the osmosis effect of the skilled, experienced peers around them. And I think that's relevant for all personality types. However, you can do that online and you can do that over the phone. I was very lucky to have an excellent mentor, a lady called Lindsay, who I shout out continually on the podcast. She's one of the people that shaped my career and my sales ability and how I talk and how I present. But not everyone is wired the way that I was to get the results from working with Lindsay remotely, because she lived in like Durham. I was living in Glasgow. We were speaking all the time on the phone, on Teams, whatever else, and supporting each other. But I know that a lot of young people benefit tremendously from sitting across from at a bank of desks from some of the experience that can benefit them. So I'm quite bullish on people learning from their experienced peers in person in the office. But if you cannot facilitate that, you need to really dig in and try and do it online and get a mentor in that space too.
And I'd agree with you as well. I think that some people do learn from other people, 100%, but it's the people that are looking to learn anyway from people. You know what I mean? Like I sit down with you and you're talking about something completely random or whatever, and I'm always continuously learning about how you speak, how you influence, how you act, and how you put yourself together. So they're the type of people that will learn no matter what. So you have the top like echelon of humans who will just, learn through adaptation. So being in the office is very helpful. You have the bottom tier who need to have support, like as you said, that drag them along no matter what. Those are the people sometimes that are going to be struggling no matter where they are, whether in office or whether or not. Also, they're not actually looking for help. I've often found that, especially in like huge companies, Some people are happy to just be in the background, head down, nobody seeing them, kind of pretty much in the shadows, and they're kind of hiding in the back. So as a result, that's not very helpful for them as a result. And in the middle tier, then of course it's a person by person basis. Then I think, you know, but what I would just like to see is like for someone to be in an office for 40 or these days 50 or 60 hours, how much of that is attributed to being in the office, how much they get done versus how much they attributed to being at home. And conversely, how much did they learn being in the office versus how much you were at home. And I do think you're completely correct in terms of like people need that support around them. Even when we're discussing about like how this room is set up, I learned so much things about how a studio is set up from just being here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, physical learning is very, very important. I'm bullish on people going into the office a little bit more than a completely remote setup, depending on what your personality type is like, depending on what you're looking to learn, depending on who you're surrounded by as well. Yeah, exactly, your role. What about you, David?
There was something that you touched on when speaking about sobriety around embodying the identity. And for me, I think being someone that enters a specific building, dressed a specific way, embodying identity does wonders for motivation. I noticed my motivation for general corporate work tapered off at the beginning of lockdown because I lost a lot of my identity. I lost my commute to work. I lost the suit that I put on, and I lost the grand, fully furnished office that I went into every day. I was just a guy in his bedroom, slaving away behind a laptop. And for me, maybe I'm less motivated than you are. I'm less self-driven than you. But for me, that sense of identity was hugely motivating for me, and I lost that during the pandemic. So for me, going back into the office, feeling that sense of importance is crucial. Not only that, I think there is a lot of success within the workplace comes from culture capital. I think you can only really build that within the office. All meetings within my workday are scheduled on an agenda or specific deliverable, but you don't catch people by the water cooler and ask them how they enjoyed the football at the weekend or what they watched on Netflix the night before. And it might sound trivial, it might sound a bit juvenile, but
I don't think it's trivial at all.
it's not, because nepotism exists. It's called culture capital because you can cash it in for reward. When an exciting project comes up with a high budget and huge potential for your career, for progression, or for training or and development opportunity arises, and because you've made a social connection within the office, someone can link you to that opportunity, your career will ultimately progress. I think it's so much harder to mirror that network effect whilst working from home.
Bullish on water cooler moments
Usually
in the office.
What I would say on that as well is the fact that it depends as well on what you want to get out of it. So as I said, you know, for you it works really well, and I wouldn't say you're less motivated than me. I actually even hate the word motivated because I feel like motivation is not even a thing. I feel like it's just like a word people use. But again, it's just your consistency to the game, whatever the game is, you know. So you felt at home, you didn't get that same attachment, which is completely fair. For when I was started with Revolut, I was always remote, so I had that different kind of effect. People who want to go there and go into the office and meet more people, that's a great way to do it. Now, I actually even wish that I met people more often, but I actually work UK hours in Singapore, so there's no point in being in the office at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's completely fine. However, for someone who doesn't want to be in an office, making them go and do it because it makes them more productive is, you know, it's a shambles. That's what we're going to get, that disconnect. So if there is a parallel and people are in agreement for it, work away. There's completely nothing wrong with it. It's not like we need to get rid of our offices. But I feel like that even if it's unspoken, there is a percentage of people who are highly skilled, highly trained, very disciplined, who just don't want to get up and do the commute, get up and put on a suit, whatever. Because of course there's that level of I've made it vibe when you're wearing a nice suit, you're in an office, whatever. But again, one of the bases around uniform is the fact that everyone is uniform. It comes in the word uniform, and people don't see that corporate companies are trying to align people to a certain message and put them into a certain bracket and therefore make them think a certain way. And that's what a uniform is IDing back to. But at the same time, you can have your own individuality and just push that narrative just to get more senior, more experience. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at the same time.
I think that's a really balanced discussion. And I think it, again, just comes down to individual preferences and what they're looking to achieve. But I think people should absolutely have freedom of choice when it comes to their work
100%.
location, and companies need to recognize that. But they are going to push back corporates. They really, really are. One of the things that I find funny is the amount of our pensions in the UK anyway that are invested in real estate. So a lot of that real estate is offices. So if those are lying dormant, then our pensions in the future are going to get hit quite hard. But let's try and not rely on our pension.
Isn't that the ownership element as well, though? You know, we go back to the example again of being stuck in the airport and having no buses. You need to take ownership of it. Let's say your pension, for instance, everyone's like giving out about it. Fair enough, they may not have seen it coming. Fair enough, people may not know about how pensions are invested. You should probably know if you're putting money into it, but whatever, okay? Let's say you don't know. During the course of your career, you should be thinking about it at least. Especially when you're hitting 40, 50, or when you have a kid. Jesus Christ, if anything ever happened to you, you need to have money for them, whatever. You should be thinking of it somehow. And then something negative happens, like that real estate thing, which I don't even know that much about. And people think it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. I will tell you right now that majority of things that I've done badly in my life is all my fault. 100%. And similar like that, there's something someone could have done or flagged or done something in that way, you know?
Completely agree. Yeah, I'm on board with that. David, what are you bearish about?
I am bearish on the perfect influencer. I think there'll be a rise of more authentic influencer or more micro influencing in 2023. I think that's been probably a kind of long-term trend that we've seen. A prime example is the Gymshark athletes. 5-6 years ago, they were all oiled up, perfectly tanned, in perfect lighting environments. And now they're catering for all different body shapes and sizes, for example. I think we will see more people using mediums like TikTok and Instagram Reels to push products in a more authentic way. People like us who are kind of small to medium-sized content creators. I think it's been catalyzed or will be catalyzed by someone like Liver King in 2023, where he claimed to be eating raw meat and testicles and no carbs to obtain the physique that he got, and he pushed many products out because of that narrative and that message. Lo and behold, I'm sure us in this room already knew this, but completely unnatural, tested positive, or there was leaks of emails of him asking for steroid usage advice. I think in 2023 we will lose trust in perfect influencers and will rely more on the advice of micro influencers or small to medium sized content creators
that are creating stuff that you think is more believable or more true
because they use it.
I think a big element around that as well is in writing. So I think when we look at Instagram in particular, a lot of, let's say, guys or girls, it's all ass and abs. So Liver King, whatever, for instance, or when you got up to some of the bigger fitness influencers, like let's say 100K, 200K, it was all based on how they look, pretty much as a result. Now we move towards, of course, like LinkedIn is like the platform I use. Twitter is another great platform that a lot of writers use. You can quickly see who's filled the bullshit. Straight away, I can click open anyone's profile from 5K all the way up to 200K. I can see straight away who's filled the bullshit. And that gives that authentic sense because you can't make it up when you're writing. Like, you just can't make it up. Of course, you can use the AI tools and all this bullshit. But in contrast to like photos, whereby it can all be photoshopped. And that's how they got to that status. So especially like women, they get to the status by photoshopping their photos. Girls want to be them, guys want to get with them. And as a result, they get 200K. Then they start shipping any sort of snake oil as a result. And then they're in that kind of bracket of an influencer. The other platforms where they're right, as a result, you see what they're really behind. And I always kind of go back to some of the guys on Twitter, Danko in particular, who, you know, they're guys that are all about what they do and they're really, really detailed on what they do. So they're really living and breathing it. Whereas I feel like Instagram gave rise to that. And I feel like Instagram's just had its day. People, of course, use it. We still use it. But I feel like the new era is going to be all around writing, podcasting, the longer forms or even shorter form like tweets that give rise to what someone really is. Because after a while, you know, if I write a certain way, I can only do it for a couple of weeks before I go back to writing the way I usually write. And it's pretty clear. You can pretty see what someone's like.
I understand that. And I think I agree with you, David, that hopefully there will be a more, how would I describe it? A more thorough analysis of the influences that you put your stock in and you put your faith in. However, the Liver King will come back from this. He'll be fine. He's still going to sell stuff. Like he's going to be fine. Like equally, some of the stuff he's saying about ancestral tenets and habits are probably a net positive. Some of it utter nonsense. Of course it is. Or it's very clever marketing to push whatever products he's trying to push forward. But I certainly think that I hope people are more careful on what they follow down the rabbit hole, because for us to put a sponsor on our podcast or to put an advert on Instagram, it's not worth damaging your reputation at the level that we're at, because we probably couldn't ride out a storm or even a decline in support from people who truly believe in us at this stage of the game, because we're still very early, very young in my opinion. So I'm extremely selective of what goes on there and what gets shared, and I have to have used it myself or know case studies of people that have used it themselves in terms of the product or service that I'm driving people towards. And that means that what I share is going to be more trustworthy than if I've got, for argument's sake, 1 million followers and somebody's like, look, we're going to give you 10 grand to push this. You're probably like, all right, okay, well, there's probably less research that they do into the product that they're going to share as well. Interestingly, what you're talking about there, Darren, about short form content as well. How many TikTok influencers or people who have blown up off short form content have you had on your podcast that have performed really, really well? I know a handful on mine that are good at both. And then I've looked at other people people have been like, oh, why don't you have such and such on your podcast? And I'm like, they're not going to stand up to 60 minutes discussion.
Because they can't back their points. Isn't that wild? Because they've built a business around short
people that
attention.
can do both though. Powerful. Richard Dixon, like I sat in this very seat and interviewed him. Highest played episode on the podcast. The guy can do short form, he can do written, he can do long form, but he's different. A lot of the guys that he maybe has the same level of TikTok following as, they couldn't hang on the podcast for me, I don't think.
Yeah, 100%. And there was a lot of those guys in the online business space, I think, as well, that, you know, they're the fucking ClickFunnels type style kind of creators, whereby they're not actually doing anything. They're not building community. It's the ones that lead with community first, like as you're discussing. These guys are master marketers, though. What I would describe as, and you might know Dan Go. Dan Go's on my show.
Yeah,
great guy. So his whole thing is, you know, fitness for entrepreneurs. How many online trainers are there out there that do fitness for busy entrepreneurs? Everybody, right? But he's a guy that builds community with his audience. He means what he says, and he writes really well, and he markets really well, and he does it in such a beautiful way that it's not salesy. He does it in a way to really help you. So he's created all his content. He's mastered it on Twitter. He's mastered it on LinkedIn. He's now mastered it on YouTube, and he's actually done a great job on Instagram too, because what he's saying is true. It's helpful, and it provides a lot of value. So him, Justin Welsh, Dakota Robertson, who's on my show as well, a few other guys, they just mean what they say. And then as a result, man, you could sit down with some of those guys for hours, literally hours, and just scratch the surface, because it all goes back to it. Same what we do as well, you know what I mean?
Their product recommendations as well, those guys don't need to sell it as well, whereas people that have built their audience on looking a particular way, they maybe are more inclined to sell it because looks don't last forever. Exactly.
And it's like the saying as well around, well, it's from the J.K. Molina, like saying cash. So all the people that built a business around platitude content, which is, oh, like, you know, we should give the homeless person a CEO job and all this kind of bullshit, right? By saying all that stuff, you gather a following, just followers, just a number count, but it doesn't materialize into anything. So then when you go to sell a product, it's super inauthentic. As a result, no one actually really follows you. And those guys, man, are not making any money. And that's the funny thing, is that they're starving for reach, or starving for an actual business, but they get likes on bullshit content.
You're spot on. I had when I was out in Dubai, I interviewed Dan and Mike from Biceps and Banter, who coach fitness coaches online to scale their business to make more money. And the number of guys that they coached the father-sons model, who had like 100K on Instagram, and he couldn't sell £150 a month online coaching to almost anyone, because people were there to see him in the clothes. Girls were there to see him because he was handsome. No one was there because to get advice about training, nutrition, or support with their fitness goals. So it's completely correct. You can build an audience, but if you aren't building them for a funnel towards the product or that's relevant, then that's a huge thing. We're all big fans of Chris Williamson, who has been on my show, and we all look up to Modern Wisdom as a podcast. Chris's first product launch off the back of Modern Wisdom was a 6-month sobriety course. Now, Chris talked a lot about productivity and sobriety during his podcast, but it wasn't exactly the same funnel. So not everyone that listened to Modern Wisdom was interested in a 6-month sobriety course. So it didn't absolutely fly. Whereas his locals community, which is kind of like a Patreon, if you really love the podcast, I'm a member of the locals community. I'll join that. I want to talk about the reaction threads about what I heard, in the same way that I'll maybe share an episode with you and be like, guys, did you hear this? And what he said on there, and or what his guest was talking about. So it's more related to the product. So making sure that the funnel is relevant in the same way the guys from Biceps and Banter were talking about these guys on Instagram doing like recipe meal hacks and stuff like that on Reels. Unless you're selling a recipe guide to your audience, why are you doing it? Because somebody who wants to do like a £3 breakfast burrito from Aldi for 300 calories, the person that's interested in that content who's wanting to get a £3 breakfast burrito probably isn't going to pay £200 a month for online coaching. They're actually somebody that's thrifty, and they're probably not going to do that. So I find it so interesting that what you bring people into the funnel with, you need to carry on and sell them something at the end, or give them something at the end that is relevant to that as well.
Mm-hmm. And just to support your point, sorry, just lastly on that is making content that's actually valuable, like being valuable to other people so that they see you as someone who's valuable. So you're showing up on their feed, they want to follow you because you're actually valuable. Biggest thing for me was that I started out at the beginning of my podcast like 2 years ago, and I was doing a lot of career coaching at the time. Now, at the time, I had 20, 30, 40 clients on up, but I was writing career content and I enjoyed doing it, but I didn't think that it was going to be something like, it's just something that kind of fell into my hands. But I wanted to go down the podcast route. But I knew that I was doing the career stuff because I was getting better engagement for it, because LinkedIn is a career platform. So I could get 10,000 views on a post, okay? But then I was like, but is this really what I want to do long term? When I changed towards that kind of more podcast model where I was giving people actual help that I really believe in, that I've done and I've struggled with continuously, I was getting 10% amount of engagement, but everything else was much more purposeful. People were actually coming there to learn stuff and they take it away. So that's why I've kind of cultivated a following of people who actually want to learn about this stuff, master the art of actually speaking and being able to improve their entire life around it. Now, that's very difficult for people to kind of come to terms with because they starve for engagement online, and they want to get attention and they want to get likes, and they see 50 likes on this post, 200 likes on this post, and they veer towards the wrong route sometimes, selling fucking recipes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, spot on.
And it's not that difficult to earn $100,000 a month. Like I recapped Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans a couple of days ago in preparation to this podcast. You only need 1,000 people spending $100 per year to make you £100,000 a month. That's like £8 per month per customer. Like all of us in this room can provide $8 worth of value per month to an individual. Not only that, I feel, especially in this attention economy, it's a great pleasure to have the trust of someone's like 90 minutes. So you better deliver something within that 90. If you're gonna take 90 minutes off someone, you better deliver something. Mm-hmm. And no short form wisdom, cookie cutter advice will satisfy that. You need to have in-depth, with in-depth knowledge, who's not going to be smoke and mirrors, that's going to be well established, have integrity for you to actually to deliver that. I've been really disenfranchised with the Diary of the CEO. I enjoyed his live show, but after that, just the guests that he's had on,
same man.
He's only had them on for those 16-second, 30-second clickbait TikToks, and I've lost so much trust. My attention has been misused watching his recent podcasts, and I don't trust that as a medium anymore.
I don't know how you feel about it, Colin, but I never trusted him from the beginning. I don't know why. I remember just seeing him, and I was like, he was like this empathetic CEO who had a lot of help for other people, and he was always trying to strive other people up. And I was like,
Don't read the Glassdoor reviews for Social Chain. That's all I'm telling you.
Yeah, I was like, then his podcast was being built up, and I was like, but there's a clear break here between who I think he really could be versus the way he shows up on screen and whatever. Because I knew that when he got his first 5 sponsors, I knew that they were like 6 million a year or whatever. But I heard that he pushed really hard for those, and I was kind of thinking like, that super empathetic kind of style CEO, that doesn't translate into getting these 6 very aggressive sponsorships that generate 6 million in revenue. I don't know how you think about it.
Yeah, I'm extremely impressed by him. I think anyone that builds a platform of that size and has the success in business has a lot about them. His live show was very impressive as well. Not as impressive as Jordan Peterson in terms of an orator, but I don't think many people are. And he was reading off a prompt the whole time, but no hate against that. If we were to touch on David's point about the recent guests, yeah, it's completely optimized for clicks and views and short form content. And that is against the nature of podcasting as a platform. Joe Rogan has 3-hour podcasts that have no cuts, sometimes. No edits, that are designed purely because he's interested in who the person is and who the conversation. I don't want to give it airtime, but we have micro podcasts, so it's probably not going to do make a dent in the ocean at all. But Billy McFarlane, the guy from Fire Festival, having him in your podcast is chasing views. He's convicted. Like, even if you're having him on to absolutely grill him in the way that Pierce Morgan's trying to do with some of his shows, you're just doing it for the views and stuff like that, and that's fine. But like, not for me. Like, I won't listen to that podcast. I'll listen to some of the other ones that he's done, but I won't be listening to that one because that one is purely optimized for sensationalized 15-second clips, which is against the nature of podcasts, which is long form, enjoyable conversations where you learn so many different facets and open up to so many different avenues.
And to caveat that on that, I think that is a poor technique at the level he's at, but I think at our level, we still need to signal with some kind of viral guest to get bigger guests on. We have to use big names and controversial names and trending names as stepping stones. So I think we can excuse ourselves at maybe this level for doing that, as long as we don't bend our integrity.
Give ourselves a little bit of leeway. I understand that, but like you say, he doesn't need that. He's already had Gary Vee. He's had some incredible guests, incredible conversations. So you're kind of selling out a little bit by having those other ones. Okay, so I'm definitely bearish on those influencers, and I hope that they continue to decline. But what else am I bearish on? I am bearish on how we are going to manage inflation. Now, I've had a number of guests in the show. Darren introduced me to Simon Ree. And one of the things that I have come to learn in the last year when it comes to economics is that quite often the cure for inflation to get it under control, sub 10%, sub 5%, back to levels that we're typically used to, is actually a recession. And that means pain. But it actually means pain for a smaller number of people than inflation is. Inflation is pain for everyone because all prices are rising across the board for everyone. Recession is deeper pain for a smaller number of people, whether it means job losses, house losses, debts coming in at an unpleasant level. And that is an unpleasant thing to be aware of. But sometimes the medicine is very, very harsh indeed and very, very painful. And that's not to say that we should all look forward to a recession because it will hurt some people and it will save everyone else. But that is actually the realities of the economic environment. And I believe that the way the government fiscal policy is playing out probably across the world is that we will actually end up in a pretty regular inflationary cycle for the next number of years. This is the first inflationary recession that we've had since the 70s. Everything else has been deflationary since then. And in the 70s, we had years where inflation came under slight control and then it went up again. Years when it came under control, went up again. And until we actually accept the pretty bitter pill and the bitter medicine, we're going to continue to be in an inflationary environment for a number of years moving forward. And that is not good for anyone, in my opinion.
Definitely. I think the biggest thing as well that you said there about job loss is that we think that it's all going to come from the bottom. So people will be laid off from public sector or whatever it is. Now that will happen. That's just going to happen. But the way our economy is working at the moment with all the tech companies, with all the startups, with all of this, that's going to be affected highly as well, because in a recessionary period, people have less discretionary money. They have less subscriptions. They're buying into like less tech and less software. Same from a VC perspective, with rates jumping up and down. They're not going to be giving as much capital. So people think that in the middle bracket, the normal people or the higher networking people, they're going to be less affected. Not at all. Those tech layoffs are going to wipe the shit out of people, 100%. And they're not stopping. They're going more aggressive. Same with the salespeople. A lot of salespeople for the big sales company, they're all going to be laid off as well. So we have that bracket around there, and it's like, what do we do with these people? Fair enough, they can move around to other roles and they will get other roles, but I feel like it's going to be much across the entire economy. And as well as you made a point about the 70s was slightly different in how it was kind of like curtailed. Now I think still at the same time we're going to run into much of the same issues, but this is where you have to brace yourself, take responsibility, and start building yourself around it, because when they do come for you, and they do come, and I always say this as well, is that like, just because you think you're super important in your role means fuck all at the end of the day. You are a number, and when they come for you, they're going to come for you. You need to be prepared. You need to start thinking like chess, like Andrew Tate would say. You got to be thinking a couple of steps ahead. You got to be thinking 3-4 steps ahead, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and see where does your life fit up in there. You may still want to be with your great job, or you still may want to keep moving forward, but promotion period's going to come up soon. If you're not getting promoted, if you're not moving forward, if your salary's not getting adjusted, you got to think about what's happening. Same with like the salaries is a joke, man. If you go up 5%, you're going to be still getting screwed on inflation. And bear in mind, if you don't get promoted, you're not going to be getting even adjusted. So you're working backwards, and especially for young people, I think the problem with a lot of young guys is that they will say, I'm too young, I'm too inexperienced, I shouldn't be asking for this. your 20s are going to slip by you pretty quickly. And if you're not moving the needle, either building your own business or moving ahead with this, when things like this come and inflation starts eating you up, you're going to be the first to get swallowed.
Agreed.
Our first bullish item was self-sovereignty. When we read headlines around inflation, we become, I'm guessing, in a society more risk adverse. From a personal responsibility point of view, how could you combat the feelings of fear when you see these headlines? What things can we do that are in our locus of control to kind of prepare?
Invest in yourself, upskill, become more valuable to your company that you work for or through the business that you own. Demand more salary at a competitor, because you will still be valuable to somebody. Again, this is something that Elliot Wise said in the show. Money is still available in the recession. In fact, we're actually printing a shit ton more of it. So it's still available. It's just harder to get either from companies or from customers. But people still grow within recessionary environments and are able to progress and do well. It's just fewer of you are able to do so. And if you can invest in yourself and take personal responsibility, have sovereignty, you will be one of those people that can move forward. Because I would like to think that the people that listen to a podcast like this one are, by the very definition of making a choice like that and listening to something like this for an hour a week, are outliers. And there will be outliers during this environment that can move forward. And that does mean that some of the people around you that aren't like that will fall by the wayside and have a really, really difficult period, which is a very hard message to take. And I think those that are really struggling in society should be supported as much as possible. But I think for too long we've had an environment that's trying to like support a dead weight at this point in time. Like we're in for some really choppy waters and people are going to get hurt.
And man, I laugh at that because it's become normal for people to have their hand out and look for help. You know what I mean? The world is fucking competitive. It's super competitive. Careers are competitive. People talk a big game, but oh, we're all family. We all work for this company. We're family. No. We're super competitive. The person that you join with the same intake, you're against them. You work together, but you're still against them at the same time. Same in the career aspect. And as you move forward, you have to get super competitive like that. With your business, you have a competitor that you may speak to, but you're still competing against them. So I think people are kind of waiting for, as you said at the beginning, someone to come and save them. But you need to become very valuable. And you're saying, how do you equip yourself? You have to build a brand around it, 100%. No matter what your thing is, if you're the person who's laying bricks, you have to have a laying brick brand around it. You want to be known around Glasgow as the person that can lay the bricks. Because what will happen is they'll cut someone, they'll wipe people out. And what some companies do is, especially non-tech roles, was that they'll cut people out that they feel they don't need. So let's say if you had a client list and your clients are reducing, you'll get rid of some people, okay? Then they will need more people and they're going to be looking around at who can we hire for like 2K or 3K or 4K a month. It's the people that they find easily online. That's who they're going to look, right? If you go onto LinkedIn, and I've gone super, super deep on how LinkedIn is created, how they find you, and how you literally pop up on someone's screen. It's a Boolean search, very basic. So they'll type in, let's say, management consultants who worked in top firms who are between this bracket and have this amount of experience. When you come back, it gets down into this fight or flight mode. There's going to be a list of you and it's going to be super competitive. When they click on a few of you, the way society is engineered is you need to be showing your accomplishments, because it's going to come down to two different people. You're smart, he's smart. Who's done more? Well, I can see publicly that you've done more, so you're just going to get an interview. And that's just the way it happens. It's the same with everything. It's the same even with dating, with everything. If you're coming out looking at two different social profiles, you'll go with a girl who has more around her life, you know, versus someone who's just sitting inside.
I love that advice, because I always say success is not about performance, but about perceived performance. And Cole, you might laugh at this because you always see me post like Apple Podcast top charts, number 8 in the UK and how to, right? We know in this room that's kind of algorithmically driven and bullshit, right? But I deliberately post that on LinkedIn because if I am at my workplace with neck to neck with another employee, they hit all their objectives, I hit all my objectives, but I've also got a podcast, I will be more suitable for promotion.
Social capital.
You're also on more committees, you're more visible to the right people, you have more water cooler moments and more catch-ups with people that are senior. You're embedding yourself and building a brand as David McIntosh within the business. I completely agree.
Mm-hmm. And when Seth Godin came on the podcast, he said, don't strive to be authentic, strive to be useful. And I think that's the message I got from that, is to pick a thing and just go balls to the wall, become a superstar in that realm. If you think about the 100-meter dash, right? We think about Usain Bolt. We don't think about who came second or third. There's disproportionate rewards to the person that becomes a superstar. He's the one that got the Virgin Media deal, the Puma deals, the TV adverts. I don't know who placed second in that same race. And that same model can apply to the workplace. It can apply to podcasting. It can apply to anything else. Aim to become useful and a superstar at one thing, in my opinion.
I think that's great advice going into 2023 because, like I said, I think it's going to be choppy waters. And I don't think it's going to be for a number of years. Again, I shared the stat when I was talking with Elliot that real wages aren't expected to get back in line with the spending power that you would have had in 2013 for another 5 to 6 years. So if people are like, let's batten down the hatches now and make it through this period, you're not going to batten down the hatches and ride out this storm. This storm is going to continue for a number of time. You need to upskill, invest in yourself, and build some sort of personal brand, build sort of utility. So I think that's two really, really good bits of advice. So yeah, I'm very bearish about what's happening with inflation, but we've spoken about this table, I think, about some of the things that people can do to move forward. And that's not saying that you need to build a podcast like you're saying and get into the top 8 in the how-to podcast in the charts. But it is building some sort of profile on LinkedIn or whatever medium that you know the eyes are going to be on from your industry that will make you stand out that little bit more than the other people that you're competing against. But Darren, let's go to you and feel free to go bullish or bearish, whatever you fancy.
Let's do something different. Okay. Bullish, big risk taking. Let me explain. So I think that basically our kind of culture for the last couple of years or last like 20 years has all been around getting a good job, sticking at it and trying to move forward with it. But we are so far behind the US in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of actually moving forward, because for them, they don't have the same opportunities, the same education. They can't get into Ivy League schools and all that kind of stuff. So they are much more risk taking, and it's much more of an all or nothing approach. If you want to do anything in life, you have to do something different than the next person. It has to be different. And I spoke about this on your podcast as well. Same result, same input, same output. So all that kind of basic kind of shit when you're young, whatever. But in this beautiful like time between in your 20s, whereby let's say we have some idea what you want to do, I don't necessarily think that the best thing for you to be doing is just slaving through a job if you want to go bigger and if you want to, do much more in your life. And the reason why is because I've seen firsthand, even in Revolut, that some of the guys that come back and do work in these big tech companies are entrepreneurs to begin with. They're guys that have sold companies, built companies, whatever. They go make that change, go make that risk essentially. So I think if you are in that moment whereby you don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage, you can go afford to take that risk. And I think you'll only regret it as well. That's the big thing that I'm seeing is that whenever I look back and everything, so let's say I'm moving to Singapore, starting my podcast, starting my business, whatever, I never look back at it and regret it. And I even remember the first business I had was when I was working in State Street in London. I remember loving London, loving, the kind of vibe and what it's all about, but never being properly fulfilled. First company I had was a clothing company at the time, and we did really well. The reason why I stopped it, bear in mind, was because I had a lawsuit against the brand because it was a vintage clothing brand. So pulled it down at the time. Everyone went pretty chill, whatever. But I always think back to that it's a risk in going for something and the reward. Fair enough, it might not work out, but we've so little to lose, And I think, I don't know, there'll come a time whereby you'll either impregnate someone, get married, whatever, and you can't do this stuff anymore. So that's where I stand with it.
There's a fallacy that young people are more creative. They're not. They're just more productive. They have more time to have the full feedback loop. They can try more things. There's less capital at risk. Mm-hmm. Your family's income doesn't depend on it. You don't have as much utilities to pay. You have less dependence. Young people aren't more creative. We just have more ability to kind of go balls to the wall, fail, use that as a feedback loop and go again.
What are the big risks that you two might take in 2023?
I think just putting more time into my podcast, more time into just trying to build my online brand in total. I think that there's unlimited upside reward and very little downside.
What's the risk with that?
I don't think there even is a risk. I think it's just mainly the time in terms of what else I could do. I could go, chill out more, whatever, be more relaxed. But I don't necessarily think that there's a risk of me losing all my cash or whatever. Because I think a lot of people are saying that, you want to get yourself set up in a job, whatnot, but you're always capped at some point. I always think about that. So the control aspect, as we said in the beginning, and also the financial aspect. So I come from a very ordinary family, but one of my goals has always been to earn a lot of money. It's always been my goals because I've never had it. And I feel like that financial freedom is a gateway to be able to do whatever you want, 100%. So because of that, when you're looking through the cracks, it's not necessarily possible from just doing the same shit as other people, the same roles. So you do need to take that risk, right? And when we look at, like, let's say earning potentials as well, if you are 30 years old and you're doing the best you possibly can in a corporate career, after tax, you're probably making like £5,000. Okay. That is the equivalent of, let's say, 2, 3, 4 clients of you building something online, or let's say a startup, and it might be the equivalent of, let's say, 1, 2, 300 active users. So it's kind of like people are so afraid to take that risk and jump into the unknown. But to bridge where you are currently, it's not like you're literally making fucking 400k. And that's what I thought was quite interesting. The more I look at it, the more I realize that, well, actually the risk is actually staying in a job, because as tech layoffs swing around and your door is going to be coming knocking next, maybe it's you that had the bigger risk because you just went gun hole on this traditional career, and now you're left hanging, you're left completely dry.
The biggest risk for you then, Darren, is the time invested into chasing something that might not pay off, but
opportunity cost.
You've worked out that it's worthwhile. David?
100% opportunity cost for me. Until this point, I haven't really monetized the podcast, and besides a few episodes that have been in the studio. I think for me, the biggest risk that I'll take in 2023 is commercializing the podcast. I don't know if the reason for not doing that so far is because of the lack of confidence in the platform itself, or wanting to perhaps build a more robust catalog before I push it to that level. But for me, having a reputational risk where I am attaching brands to myself and myself to other brands, I think that's something that I'm going to embark on in 2023, because both of you guys have done that successfully for the last 100 episodes.
It's just being selective though.
Yeah, it's a mindset thing as well, I would say. So I completely agree with you. I feel like the first year of anything is build it, just make sure it's robust no matter what it is. Just make sure it's just a robust piece of material. Next year, monetization. That's how I viewed everything. It was year 2 is monetization, year 3 is scalability. Try bring things to the next level. So it has to be built, it has to be monetized, it has to be able to scale. I mean, that's what works. And this is not a short-term game. It's a long-term game with all this stuff. And it's setting yourself up in the right way. As you said, learning your voice, learning how to speak, putting everything together. And I feel like the lessons you learn from podcasting, we don't want to go down that route, but the lessons you learn are attributed to everything in life that you do. So I think that's very, very valuable. And I can't speak in even more detail about it, to be honest.
It is a risk. It's a risk of rejection as well from the brands in terms of maybe the amount of money that you want from them, or the amount of offer that you want to offer to your audience. So many people know that I stopped working with a particular meat retailer because they were expecting more from me for less return for me, and equally their offer to my audience was being decreased in terms of the value of the discount code and things like that they were getting. So just being really aggressive and understanding what kind of sponsors you would want to attach to your podcast, what kind of offering is relevant to your audience and is valuable to them, and making sure that it's unique or valuable to them. So like they couldn't just get the exact same offer off the street. They maybe, as a listener to your podcast, they maybe get an extra £5 off, an extra £10 off, an extra 10%, whatever it is. There's some sort of utility to that, and it is something that a percentage of your audience will get something from. It's not just, you're not just blasting it on there for the sake of it. So I think it is a risk, but we can manage that risk really, really, really well.
What's a risk that you'll take in 2023, Paul?
I am going to align more time to written content as well. I keep threatening that I'm going to write this ebook. I'm well into it, but I will not release anything that I'm not fully happy with. So I want to release 15 self-development lessons from the first 150 podcasts. We're now at 164, I think this is. So I'm a little bit behind, but it's because I think I wrote the first 8 lessons, and I haven't had time to write the next 7 to the same level that I would want to create that. So if I'm going to ask somebody for purchasing an ebook and some of the lessons off the back of that, and then some of the additional products that I can sell off the back of that in terms of leveling up, in terms of like videos, calls with me, discussions, whatever else, then it needs to be a really good level. It needs to be built properly. So the risk for me will be asking my audience to bear with me while I do that, and then be happy to invest in me from that perspective as well. For that. So the risk for me is, again, probably opportunity and time that I'm doing, but also the risk of asking my audience for money for a product that I think is going to be really good value, but I can't know until it's out there in the world. The demand, people that are on my email list are champing at the bit and they're asking me for it, and it's amazing when I get replies being like, "Call, where's the book?" or solo questions, like questions in the solo podcast call. When's that coming? But that for me is a risk. But let me do one more of mine in terms of bullish or bearish. I am bullish about the Lindy effect. Now, Lindy effect or Lindy law is effectively that the longer a non-perishable item has been around, the longer it will continue to be around. And that relates to long form content. Now, somebody might be watching this particular clip that I'm speaking about just now on TikTok or Instagram Reels, and that's short form. But I'm telling you that for the longer term, long form content like written posts, blogs, articles, YouTube videos, podcasts are going to be much more valuable and much more impactful than a 15-second TikTok or a 30-second reel that you've just seen, because it will be gone the next day. The vast majority of content that's created is here for 24 hours and then it disappears. All your Instagram stories are there for 24 hours, then they're gone. The things that have true impact and that continue to add value to your audience's life are the longer form things. I got a message about episode 6 the other day. That was out in April 2020. That's crazy. Episode 42, loads of people still messaging me about that. It was a guy called Andrew Craig who talked about how to own the world and how to start investing. People today were asking me about that. 2 people. How mad is that? 2 people. An episode that came out in November 2020. Long form content will win, and I'm extremely bullish on it because it doesn't expire quickly. It's there in the archives. If somebody discovers me through Rob Lipset or Richard Dixon or Sahil Bloom and they're like, oh, this host's quite good, I'm going to listen to his back catalogue, they're going to listen to stuff that might have been released 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. In 5 years' time, they might listen to stuff that was released 5 years ago, and I'm extremely bullish on that.
I think an aspect in that as well that you didn't realize is the fact that the short form stuff you do brings people into the funnel and then they transfer down into the long form. So that's the beauty of like even having like stories or tweets or LinkedIn posts, is the fact that they see this person like Colin, they like, know and trust him, and then they want to go through and see more. And then it's your newsletter, it's your podcast, whatever that is, or YouTube videos that build that real trust. So whatever you're trying to do, even if it's non-monetization, if it's just helping other people, all the short form stuff is a basis for the long form. They go through and then they can even listen to episode 6, episode 2, and it's completely natural. That's the beauty of it as well, I think. And I feel like that people like the short form stuff. It's how to describe it. It's like the fortune cookie shit, just a small stuff. And then they go through for the longer stuff. That will always be around. And I feel like some of the big boys like Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, whatever, they were first to that, but they're definitely not going to be the last as well.
Yeah, you're like, welcome to the podcast. If you've come here via clip, like, I'm delighted to have you, but stick around for this stuff, because the next episode, this episode, the episodes before, if you listen for a full hour, they're the ones that are really going to add value to your life when it comes to self-development, mindset, health, fitness, whatever it is you're working on, rather than just a 15-second clip. But of course, I'm going to keep playing the game, going to keep making clips. Obviously, you have to. That's part of it.
And I think more generally on the Lindy effect, like, I think that's such a good guiding principle for starting a new endeavor. Is like, does it pass the Lindy effect? Has it proven successful in the last 40, 50 years? I think that just for any endeavor is such a good like stress test. I think long form content is also predicated on like preferential attachment. Short form content doesn't consider that. There's no way to filter TikTok for your most played, but there is a way to filter your YouTube podcast for most downloaded. For me, books like 12 Rules for Life, Atomic Habits, there's a reason why they haven't went out of fashion, because of preferential attachment. People continually singing their praises through different grapevines and having a network effect, having a compound interest effect of interest. But like you said, Darren, for me, a lot of my most played podcasts have been accelerated by the short form content that I put out. Rory Southern clips, right, garnered over 1 million views on TikTok. But I have noticed the episodes below that also increasing in plays because of the nature of the plays that we're seeing on the first 2 episodes. So I think it's important to find the balance between the two. Well, we just criticised Diary of a CEO for optimising for short form because he's maybe getting a clickbait clip that will grab people in to get them across to the long form, and that's fine. He's playing the game, all power to him. But striking that balance is absolutely vital. Don't sell out for a sensationalist one question when the hour interview itself should be the thing that we're trying to produce the best possible thing. But time wise, I want to hear one more from you, Darren, for starters, for definite.
For which one? Give me
either. Be bullish or bearish.
So bearish on crowd mentality. So a big thing that I've realized last couple of years as well is the fact that a lot of people just think the same shit, you know, that they're just only thinking something because it's just de facto that's happened in society. One perfect one is scamdemic, obviously, that when that started, we thought that, let's say, the government or whatever, they like had our backs, whatever, that's fine. Then it gets to the stage whereby people don't know what they're believing anymore, and they're just continuously thinking the same narrative. This could be fitness related, it could be vegan diets, it could be fucking any type of diet or whatever. People just get in this idea without taking any individuality to research something. So I'm seeing this kind of grow more and more recently. And I even just, a perfect example that happened today was Andrew Tate's stuff. People love to get around the ideas that he got arrested for this reason, he got arrested for that reason, not thinking anything of it, but wanting to be part of that tribe. And I think, again, going back to individuality, if you want to break away from this mentality, you cannot think like other people can all the time. Of course, two of you are like one of my great mates, but we have to have differences in how we think a lot of the time, because otherwise we'll just be the same extension of one another.
Diversity of thought is true power, isn't it?
100%. I think the crowd aspect of it, though, on any different level, whether it's alcohol, whether it's anything, will always be tied back to the fact that people don't want to think for themselves. And the more you don't think for yourself, the more you're going to be given your own plan, and you're not going to be in control of your life at all.
On that, I think whenever you look at a creator and people that listen to this podcast, they shouldn't agree with absolutely everything that we've all said. Mm-hmm. You might like 80% of what I've had to say or the type of guest that I have on, and there might be 20% you're like, 10% you can kind of deal with them, and then the other 10% you're like, Colin, I'm never listening to that episode, or if I do listen to it, it's going to be through gritted teeth. And that's actually great. Mm. And it was a phrase that I borrowed from Zuby, who's been on the show as well, and is actually a good friend of Andrew Tate. He said, you don't have to eat the cow, bones and all.
Yeah.
Maybe you just want the leg. Maybe you just want like a small steak of it, but the rest you don't want to touch. Or maybe you want the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Up to you. But you don't have to take on board absolutely everything that somebody says. So crowd mentality, I think they just take large chunks of like general macro ideas and go with them all. If we sit at this table and David tells me one of his views, and I can tell you every single one of his other views on all different kind of party lines, political issues, topics, then I just disagree with that. That's not the case. David has very many complex views, and like we've had discussions where you and I are extremely aligned on certain things, and other things you give me a bit of pushback, I give you a bit of pushback, and we completely respect it, because we should not be identical human beings that all agree 100%. With the same thing. We're not we should be autonomous. We should not be a crowd. And
I think it has such a great ability to divide culture. Like this pandemic was a great outplay of that, where we saw anti-vax and vax. If your uncle wasn't wearing a mask, you'd see people like lambasting him for it, and you're not going to your uncle's house because he's not wearing a mask. Well, no, we're not giving him a gift for Christmas because he's not wearing a mask. Like, it was dividing culture. Same with like the net zero transition. People who are adopting sustainability
politics as well.
Politics, it has a great ability to divide culture, and if we start segmenting into different groups and we're not having that diversity of thought, the economy, productivity, innovation, it's all going to suffer from it. We should be more plastic with the content we consume, and how we paint different content creators with singular brushes. We are seen as less of people but more a representation of ideas now, and I think culture will ultimately suffer from that.
That's why I'm just not political, because I just don't agree with all of anything. You know,
if you look at the manifesto of a party, there's probably 3 or 4 things you're on board with, and then other things that you're not on board with. So it's very, very difficult to vote for it. So it's very difficult to say, I'm a conservative, I'm a nationalist, I'm a Labour supporter, or I'm whatever, a Republican or a Democrat. You should be fluid in terms of, oh, well, I'm not sure I agree with this particular stance. I'm not sure I agree with this particular stance. One of the examples that gets brought up in the States all the time, you have people that are pro-gun, but then anti-abortion, or you have people that are anti-gun and pro-abortion. But then you have people that are vehemently like one or the other, and you're thinking, oh, so strange that by knowing one of your views, I know that where you stand on everything else.
You were given the other ones.
But I would much rather, like, for example, you might find out that like there's certain aspects that I think there's certain drugs that we should legalize. But then if you look at some of my other views on government and state and stuff like that, you might think, oh, Colin shouldn't be like that. Or if you look at my health and my fitness, you might think, oh, Colin wouldn't agree with that. And I would like to be somebody that you're maybe surprised by some of my viewpoints, but equally understand how I've got to that particular point and accept that I'm allowed to think that way without cancellation or without fear or favor. And I think that should be something that's ubiquitous across society now, where we're allowed to think different things that are perhaps unpalatable to somebody, but they can see how you got to that point, and equally be allowed to challenge that if they want to, or just disagree with me on that, and we'll move on from there. And
it's what gives you character, it's what makes you interesting. We're a complex lattice of opinions and ideas, and it's beautiful that way.
Yeah, I love that. time wise, I think we are running short, guys. So let's wrap up here. But I've thoroughly enjoyed that episode. I'm extremely bullish for 2023, and I'm sure you both are as well. If people want to continue the conversation, where should they head towards? First of all, Darren.
Drop me a message on LinkedIn, as always, Darren Lee. That's pretty much it.
LinkedIn, David McIntosh, or Instagram, Development by David.
They'll be linked in the show notes, guys. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you to you, the listener. Have a fantastic 2023. Let's fucking go.
Sick.